And welcome back to the Shoop Sports Shenanigans with our boy Chuck Bambino in the
I'm in my
house.
dungeon. I'm in my dungeon. You know how it is. Locked in, ready to rock.
He's in his bag. My boy Chuck is in his bag. That is what we are talking about today. Who is in their bag? In the
That's right.
NFL, in the NBA, we're in the thick of the best part of sports season, where everything's going on at once. We got college football coming up in a couple weeks. Looking forward to those big bowl games and, of course, the playoff games.
Oh yeah.
But to kick things off, let's start things off with a little bit of a dub and a little bit of an L. Sound good to you, Chuck?
Oh, you want me to start me off? I'll give you.
Yes.
I'm gonna give you a fat dub. Shout out Drew Lock. Dub of the week goes to Drew Lock. Absolutely, he exudes confidence, even when he's down, like throughout his career. And just what happened on Monday on that final drive when he threw that touchdown pass to JSN against the Eagles at home. It was just magical to watch that and watch that dude just ball out. And he always, like, in the post game interview, like he's like in the interviews, like, I told JSN, like, hey, if he gets 1-on-1, like, I'm throwing you this pill. Like, he keeps it real 110% all the time. You can only tip your hat to that man, because there have been times when he's in the league and he made himself look like a fool, but like, that's kind of how you got to live life. You just got to be 100% yourself and confident no matter what's going to happen, if you're going to fail or if you're going to succeed, because I think that's what the game of football is all about, just pure entertainment and 100% commitment to your team, and that you're going to put the ball in your hands and you're going to go and make the final touchdown drive and beat an Eagles team that was NFC defending champs, and that we're also looking for a win. And I had the Eagles. And I wasn't even mad, because when Drew Lock does this thing with the backpack, when he gets his backpack on, it's over.
What a great interview that was at the end of Monday Night Football. One thing that stood out to me was how, like, honest it was. He talked about the fact that when you were sitting on the sidelines for that long, you start to not believe in yourself. Can I actually do this thing? And then he regained that confidence and led his team to a win. Truly the year of the backup quarterback. So many guys who were written off decided not to write back.
Right there, Seahawks own.
Yeah, took a little page out of Gino's book there.
He should have said that. Locks should have said that.
He should have. He really should have. All right. W goes to a guy that's definitely not a backup quarterback. He's the possible MVP of the league, and that is Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy had another fantastic game, nearly perfect on his passer rating once again, making it look easy against the Cardinals. But there's two reasons I want to give him the W. The first one was this tiny video I saw of Jerry Rice coming onto the field and greeting Brock Purdy. So if you haven't seen the video, which I'm not sure if you have, basically Jerry Rice comes up. He's like, hey, Brock Purdy, what's up? And Brock Purdy gives him a dap back. And then Jerry walks away. And then immediately Brock Purdy just goes back to throwing the football. Like, to keep your composure when the literal greatest on your team of all time comes up to you is kind of crazy, because he's like 23, 24, like, and not a ton of expectations coming into the league. And now all of a sudden he's leading MVP candidate, but don't tell him that, because he shouted out his own teammate and made a case for him to be MVP. He said that Christian McCaffrey deserves to get it. And if we want to talk like really about this debate, well, McCaffrey might be the most valuable player in the league.
I agree.
But Brock Purdy, what he does well is he has absorbed Kyle Shanahan's system to the point where he can get the most out of every single player. I don't know necessarily if Brock Purdy would have the same success on any other team, but similar to how, and I'm not making this comparison like they're the same, but like similar to how Brady and Belichick were able to work together all those years to make something magical. It seems like this is what's happening with Brock Purdy. And Kyle Shanahan has been waiting for a quarterback to elevate this offense. He had injury-prone Jimmy Garoppolo. They spent an early pick on Trey Lance. Brock Purdy comes out of nowhere, takes the reins of the starting job, and now all of a sudden he's a leading candidate for MVP. How insane is that as a Mr. Irrelevant?
He went from Mr. Irrelevant to Mr. Relevant. So
Indeed.
it's got to say a lot, and you're 100% right with the coaching. And like people will make the case like, oh, he has like the personnel, like he's got Debo, Ayuk, Kittle, Scott McCaffrey. Like of course he'll have all these yards, but I mean, I think it to go to great lengths and fuck that up. It's possible. It's definitely possible to fuck that up. And I'm trying to find another case where people had all these weapons and a quarterback didn't get to do good. But I think like even though he has all those weapons, he is exceeding expectations with those weapons, and he's showing it on the field every day. And right now, he definitely does deserve to win MVP.
100%. So we're going to go from MVPs to LVPs, least valuable players or people of the week. We're going to give out our L's. And I'm going to start off with that game that you were talking about before, the Eagles Seahawks. And I'm going to give it the L to Nick Sirianni and the entire Eagles coaching staff for not just kind of setting the Eagles up for failure in that game. You know, you got your defense playing better than expected against a their defense has been pretty bad all year, but they held things in check for the most part. It's just the offense couldn't do anything. And then late in the game, those play calls were absolutely atrocious. You're playing with the lead, throwing deep balls, and you get picked off. The Seahawks have one timeout. Like, why aren't you just running the ball? And then in the last play of the game, they throw another deep ball, and that gets picked off. And what was interesting, after the game, Nick Sirianni says he doesn't regret the play call and that the purpose of the play call was to try to draw a pass interference play, and it didn't work. Who sets up a call to get a penalty? You're basically saying, well, we're going to put this game into something that is completely out of our control. That is ridiculous. That is not a winning formula. And I don't want to say I told you so because, I've probably had many bad takes in the offseason. But one of my takes in the offseason was that the Eagles probably weren't going to be as good this year because they lost both their coordinators.
Yeah.
It really feels like, after all those wins they had early in the season where they were just kind of squeaking by in games and, the record looked good, now they're starting to fall apart. But this is the team that's really been all year. The defense hasn't been great. Offense has been inconsistent, and they're really missing those coordinators.
I completely agree. It's like you get Matt Patricia. Like, is he any better than like any other defense coordinators that were available? Like, it's unbelievable how it's a 2-minute drill and you're going rob or cover one, and you give JSN, who was an elite receiver in college, but I think Drew Lock found the mismatch and he was like, dude, 1-on-1, I'm throwing you this pill. And he did, and it was fucking dot. And JSN left that DB in the dust. And the back end, the middle safety was nowhere to be found. And you're supposed to read the quarterback's eyes, but like, I don't know how you don't get over the top of that. Also, yeah, go back to that 2-minute drill with the Eagles. There was 12 or 13 seconds left on the clock, and you're at midfield. You don't want to run like a quick wide receiver screen, get 10 yards, and call timeout. And you had timeouts.
And how many times has Jake Elliott hit 60-yard game-winning field goals? I mean, we know very personally he can do that.
Yeah, did it against the Giants. Like, I'll never forget that game too. Like, it was like a 62-yard field goal to win it.
He did it a few weeks ago.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I had the Eagles in that game, and I was mad, but I was just like, you know what? I think it's good that we're seeing the Eagles downfall from here on out.
Very true. All right. What you got for your L, Chuck?
L, this is going to be quick. I mean, if you've been watching bowl season, like they're having games now. There was a game Tuesday. Put a little scratch on it, a little sprinkle on it, put a little action on it. It was Old Dominion played Western Kentucky, and Western Kentucky had like a bunch of guys out in the portal, so a bunch of guys on defense weren't playing. and the line was Old Dominion favored at -6.5. So I took Old Dominion. This is a Tuesday at like 2 p.m. So the game's going on. I'm watching. Old Dominion goes up 28-0 to start of the second quarter. I'm like, oh, this is a wrap. I'll shut the game off. I'll go do whatever I need to do during that day. Next thing I know, I turn it on to the fourth quarter. It gets a little spicy. It's like 35-21. Old Dominion's still up by 14. Game goes to overtime. It's 4th and 3. Old Dominion's running the clock out. They decide to go for a long field goal. It's the longest field goal that their kicker has ever attempted. And guess what? It gets blocked. The Hilltoppers tie it up in overtime. Old Dominion gets the ball first in overtime. They miss a field goal. I'm not even covering at this point. I'm just watching it appear fucking amusement. And I'm like, they're going to blow this fucking game. And it's got to be one of the worst beats I've ever witnessed. So if you bet Old Dominion -6.5, you might as well just put that team in the graveyard for the rest of your life, because I don't think they'll ever help you again if you pick them. Well, they won't help me. So they're in my gambling graveyard.
You know what? Listening to your story, W to that Western Kentucky team.
Yeah, honestly. Yeah, turn it into a
come back like that. Like show some pride for next year. So good luck. I'll be looking for them to win the Sun Belt or CUSA, whatever they're in. I don't know.
I think it's the CUSA. Yeah,
the conferences are always changing, so who the hell knows? All right. So what we're gonna do now is I'm gonna share my screen real quick. So we're going to head over to the double monitor, and we're going to pull up the NBA standings for all viewers to see and for us to see. We're going to quickly check in, and we're going to kind of talk about what has been surprises, which teams have been disappointing, and what stands out and how we think it's going to play out, down the line during the season. Let's start with the Eastern Conference. First off, what is your biggest surprise in the East?
So, biggest surprise in the East, I mean, you have to agree on this, is the Orlando Magic.
100%.
Just coming out and firing. Paolo Banchero is playing out of his mind. He leads the team in points, rebounds, and assists. So, automatically, I think he's going to get an all-star. But other than that, they got other guys like Franz Wagner, like playing out of his mind, averaging 20 points a game. What's his name? Cole Anthony is playing really well. Jalen Suggs, who they drafted like 2 years ago, is playing really well. They drafted him last year. And then the team is like, you wouldn't think this team would be a top 4 Eastern team, but it seems like they just play outstanding basketball together, and they beat good teams too. So I'd say the Magic.
Yeah, the Magic are my top surprise, but if I had to give a second surprise, we look at these standings and it looks pretty similar aside from the Magic from last year. But the 76ers lost Harden in the offseason and didn't really replace him with like a similar level talent. And yet here they are and just picking up right where they left off. And that has a lot to do with Joel Embiid looking like an MVP candidate again. I think he's had at least 34 points in like 8 of his last 10 games, like some insane clip. And he's getting double doubles. He's like a one-man wrecking crew. And I mean, Tyrese Maxey does his thing too, but Embiid, he's showing that he can single-handedly carry a team. Like these guys like D'Anthony Melton, like Tobias Harris has been mid for quite some time now. So shout out 76ers for, keeping up with the times.
I like that. Shout out also Kelly Oubre Jr. He's been balling on that too.
Yes. Do we have a disappointment in the East?
Disappointment in the East, I would have to say the Cleveland Cavaliers. Even though they're only 6 right now, I was gonna go with the Hawks too, but I think the Hawks aren't that good. But I'm gonna go with the Cavs because they got injuries, which is bad right now. So Garland's out and Evan Mobley's out. Other than that, they did add some depth. They got Niang, Strus, but I don't know. I'm thinking that this might be a fake team. I think the Cavs might have another fake season. And a hot take: if they keep losing games, I think Mitchell might be traded.
It's very much possible. You want to talk about fake teams? How does any professional sports team lose 24 games in a row? That
Yeah,
is ridiculous.
I don't understand that.
And it's not like they don't have young talent. I mean, they just had the number one pick a few years ago with Cade Cunningham, and they got a lot of young guys on that team, but they can't win any of these games. They can't put it together at all. You know, it's so bad in Detroit that there was a post on Reddit uh, encouraging the Pistons to kill two of their players so that they can get a disaster draft. So apparently, there's this thing called a disaster draft, and if people die in an accident, that you can pawn players off of other teams to rebuild your team. So someone on the Pistons subreddit was like, "Well, let's kill two of our players because that might be our fastest way to rebuild." It's really that bad in Detroit. It's ridiculous.
Insane rebuild idea. Insane.
How could it possibly go wrong? The East not very fun. Let's go to the West. The West is a whole bunch of fun, as it usually is, but lots to talk about here. Let's start off. What's your biggest surprise in the West?
I mean, I don't think it is a surprise to me, but I think for if you don't follow the NBA that well or so closely, I think the huge surprise has to be OKC. Just absolutely dominating as a 2 seed. SGA plays out of his mind. Even though there was a little scandal with Giddy, that seems to have died down a little. Chet Holmgren is finally playing after he got hurt his last year as a rookie, and he's balling out of his mind, grabbing every defensive rebound. And another guy that comes through that I think more people need to know his name is Jalen Williams. He's absolutely a great two-way player, and he is playing really well too, with the second most points averaged on that team. And I'm excited to see what this team brings to the table going forward, and it could be the new face of the league when, let's say, like LeBron, KD, or Steph leaves.
Oh yeah, there's so many young players with all those draft picks they had. It's about time that they put it together, and they still have a lot of draft picks. So the future is amazingly bright with Oklahoma City. But what about the team on top, the Minnesota Timberwolves? They're one of the least successful franchises in all of sports, let alone the NBA. You know, I don't think they've ever made it to a finals. I don't think they've ever had a finals appearance. Here they are at 20-5, and Anthony Edwards, who was one of my favorites to rise up a level, has risen up a level.
Yeah.
Him, Karl Anthony Towns, and that whole team is clicking on all cylinders right now. Just dominant offense, great defense. Certainly, you would expect, like the Phoenix Suns or like the Lakers, the Clippers, these all-star teams that were built. But the Timberwolves, they have built chemistry over the years, and they're finally starting to see things come into place. It is remarkable that they have the best record in the NBA right now. I would never have expected that.
I agree. I wouldn't expect that either. I like how they're doing it with three big men that absolutely dominate the paint. So, as you said, Karl Anthony Towns, and then they have Naz Reid coming off the bench, and then Rudy Gobert still playing at a prolific defensive level, where he's just a great rim protector. And defense. We don't really hear that a lot in the NBA, and that's definitely something that they use to their advantage.
Now, what about disappointment? I think there's a bunch you can choose from in the West, but who do you think is biggest disappointment?
My biggest disappointment. I mean, I'm gonna go. I was gonna go with the Warriors, but I feel like that's such a team that's just getting old. It's definitely gonna have to be Phoenix. Phoenix is the most disappointing. I'll give them a slide because they did have like a shit ton of injuries in the beginning of the season. I'm pretty sure Bradley Beal was hurt, and then he just got hurt a week ago. And then I'm pretty sure Booker was injured too in the beginning of the season. But hopefully this team can put it together and win games that they're supposed to win, especially at home. Um, but KD is still playing at the Hall of Fame level, and I just love to see that. Even though he left our Nets, I still am a fan of KD um, as of right now. Not when he was on Golden State, but I'm glad KD is doing well. But Suns need to get their act together.
The Suns set themselves up for failure by assembling an all-star team with no depth.
Yeah,
As soon as one guy goes down, of course they're going to struggle. They don't have guys behind that can replace that production. And that is the fatal flaw when you go all in on, 4 players. I think, if they sneak into the playoffs, like they could make noise, but you got to remember with those Brooklyn Nets teams, they were together for the playoffs, but they had no time to develop chemistry together, and it didn't look good on the court.
no.
So Suns definitely one of the big disappointments. A couple other disappointments, and shout out to the Clippers who definitely could have been a disappointment, but they are on a big winning streak right now, and they have vaulted themselves back into playoff position. So I'll give them a slide for now. Disappointment number 1, the San Antonio Spurs. I know that they're rebuilding, but I kind of expected them to at least be, average to below average with Wemby. And there's a lot of young players, great coach. It's the fact that they only have 4 wins is kind of mind-boggling. Like, how are these guys like around Wemby like not making more of an impact? Like Wemby should be getting more of the attention. It's just they have really poor defense is the problem. You could see that opposing points per game, it's over 120. That's the second highest in the league. Only the Wizards, who give 126 a game, give up more. The Houston Rockets are a big disappointment to me too, but it was kind of predictable. They went in the offseason and they spent big money on these free agents to surround their young players. But number one, the young players weren't that great. Like, obviously they're talented, but in terms of like being real team players and difference makers, not really. And then the guys they add, like Fred VanVleet and Dylan Brooks, like they're good, but they're not like look where they are. They're stuck in mediocrity, and I don't see a path for them getting out of it because of all the talent in the West. And a lot of these teams are disappointing, and I think they'll rise up. But the Rockets, it's just like it's a plan that just doesn't seem to be coming. It seems like they're heading for a rebuild in a couple of years, pretty quickly.
They're just gonna keep rebuilding. I think hot take Memphis right now. It's like 7-19. After watching Ja last night, definitely watch them crawl back up.
That would be crazy. They put themselves in a really big hole. So if they can get out of that, then crown Ja comeback player of the year.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. So, before we get off the NBA, what is your current all-star starting 5 for each conference?
Okay, so from each conference, so we're gonna go with the West. Starting 5. I'm gonna put 1 LeBron at the 1. The 2 is gonna be Luka. 3 is gonna be KD. 4 is gonna be Sengun, and the 5 is gonna be Jokic. And then
I like that. I like that list. I would replace Sengun with Anthony Edwards, and I would replace KD with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
I don't that interchangeable. I like it.
Yeah, but all those guys will be all-stars for sure. And then in the East, you're starting 5.
So the East starting 5, at the 1, Brunson. At the 2 is tough. There's so many guards in this conference. At the 2, I'm gonna go with probably Dame. Definitely Dame. 3, Tatum. The 4 is gonna be Giannis. 5, Embiid.
One guy that you don't forget about, this guy, Tyrese Halliburton, on the Indiana Pacers. He'd easily be that second guard. He's been fantastic. He's another double machine.
Oh yeah, I think he needs to shoot more, but That's just me.
Yeah. All right. So that's it for the NBA. Let's get into NFL because it is a huge week coming up. Big time playoff implications. So we're going to do our pick 'em, but we're going to delve a little bit into the analysis for these games as well, rather than just blur out the picks. Let's start with the game of the week. Ravens at 49ers on Monday Night Football. The last game on Christmas Day, 8 o'clock. 11-3 versus 11-3, 1 seed versus 1 seed. Potential Super Bowl preview. This I don't know, Chuck. I'm super excited for this matchup, like more so than any matchup I've seen. But what do you think is going to be the biggest X factor that will decide this game's result?
It has to go to the line of scrimmage. Definitely, which O line is going to fuck up the most, and that other which O line fucks up the most, that team will lose. Because when you get sacks, you make stacks, And the 49ers definitely have a more dominant pass rush. Ravens like to run the ball. They definitely have a really good O line. Hopefully, Ronnie Staley's like 100% healthy because he looked banged up last time in that game against the Jaguars. Whoever dominates the line of scrimmage is going to win this game. And the 49ers definitely have the upper hand. Are we give out pick right now?
Well, before we give out a pick, if I had to pick a matchup that's key in this game, I would say the Ravens receivers. Who's going to step up?
Yeah.
If you watched that game last week versus Jacksonville, which they won pretty handily, Lamar, he was handing the ball off or he was keying in on Isaiah Likely. 49ers got some great linebackers. Likely is not going to get his this week. He's not going to get as open.
Definitely.
But their corners are definitely very beatable. But do they have the guys to beat it? Can Odell, rejuvenate his prime and have a big game? Can Zay Flowers, can he step up? Can someone else like Nelson Aguilar make some plays? These receivers are going to have to get open because we know how good the D-line is and we know how good the linebackers are. That's the way you can beat them. So can they do that? What is your pick?
I think they can because I was going to go with 49ers just because how elite their offense is. But the 49ers defense has holes. They're third in rush defense overall, which is very good and not good for the Ravens who want to establish the run early. But their 49ers pass defense is kind of at mid-tier. They're ranked 15th in pass defense, which was kind of a light there for the Ravens. And I like what you said. Like Zay Flowers last week had zero receptions for 0 yards. This week, that's not going to happen. They're going to have to get him the ball in space. 49ers going to focus on stopping the run first, and then they'll get to the pass. They're gonna try and keep Lamar in the pocket and not let him get out of the pocket. So if Lamar can have an awesome day of slinging the rock and holding onto the football and not throwing more than one interception, because if he throws 2 picks, 49ers catch up on the turnover margin, and they'll score at will if you turn the ball over, even field goals. So I think if Lamar takes care of the ball, he gets the ball downfield, and maybe we could see a guy like Isaiah Likely go off again. Maybe they'll disregard him. Maybe they'll be like, hey, we got to bracket Odell. We got to bracket Zay Flowers. Let's leave Isaiah to the flat. Like if he runs to the seam, linebacker will carry him up. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Ravens attack. I'm definitely going to go with the Ravens on the road.
It's going to be a great game, but I don't know how you bet against the 49ers. I think they're undefeated. I don't know if it's like 13-0, 14-0, whatever it is. They're undefeated when Brock Purdy, Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, and Trent Williams all finished the game. And they're all healthy right now and clicking on all cylinders. This offense is unlike anything we've really ever seen before. And, those losses they had midseason when those guys were hurt, that was a different team. This team is basically undefeated. The Ravens, I just don't think they have the ability to exploit the areas the 49ers are weak in. Whereas the 49ers, well, their offense is good enough that it doesn't matter what's on the other side. Look what they did to Dallas's defense. They completely embarrassed them.
True.
So I got the 49ers in this one. I'm pretty confident, actually.
I'm looking also, and Ravens have definitely top three defense in the league. So I just think 49ers, they're due for a hiccup. Let's see what the Ravens can do Monday night.
It will be a battle. It will absolutely be a battle.
I can't wait. You're right. I can't wait for this game.
Another big game is the battle of the two teams that haven't played anybody. Well, what happens when they play each other? That's right. That's the Cowboys and the Dolphins. The Dolphins are coming off a very confidence-building victory over the Jets. When they blew that game versus the Titans, they were down Tyreek. People are wondering if Tua can still be the same quarterback without him, and he showed that he absolutely can be. He didn't really miss a beat. The Cowboys, however, are going the opposite direction. After a huge win over the Eagles and all the hype in the world, the potential to get number one seed, they lay a fat goose egg against the Bills. So now these two teams meet, both 10-4, opposite conferences. Some are expecting a high-scoring game. Some are expecting defensive battle. What do you expect?
I think this might be a shootout because you cannot trust the Cowboys defense on the road. The point differential between them on the road and them at home, I think is they're on the road they're plus 20. So you really can't. I don't think you could you can't bet on the Cowboys on the road. I'm looking at the injuries right now. It doesn't say anything about Tyreek being questionable or not, but so I think Tyreek's ready to go on the Dolphins. Other questionables are A-Chain, Mostert, Andrew Van Ginkel, which I don't think is a factor. But I think A-Chain and Mostert will be ready to go. Dolphins are going to be in their final form. And I think they're going to absolutely it's going to be a shootout. I think the Cowboys are definitely going to put up a fight, but I think the Dolphins are going to win by probably 4 or a touchdown. And the Cowboys defense is going to struggle on the road. And I don't like what Micah Parsons was saying about people criticizing the Cowboys for losing. And I don't know if you saw him. He was like, "How could you root for somebody to fail?" And then I'm like, "Dude, that's what media is. That's what me and Shoop do. We criticize and we create narratives and stories for people to think about. This is what the greatest thing about sports talking is. You can make anything new up. Yeah, it's nothing new. So I think Micah and their whole defense are a bunch of babies, and they're not going to be ready for this game, and they're going to come out soft. And I think the Dolphins are going to smack them around like they did the Jets. They beat the Jets 30-0, and they threw all over a defense that, yeah, they're on the field half the time. But the Jets defense is a good defense, especially in the pass game. So give me the Dolphins at home.
Chuck, so just some clarifying information. So Tyreek Hill did miss today's practice. The Dolphins are still hoping that he will play this weekend. But even if he does play, I get the feeling that in a normal season, this would be like a 4 to 6 week injury, like a bad ankle sprain where they hold him out, but they're holding out hope that he can play. But if he does play, is he going to be the same explosive guy that we're used to seeing? The Dolphins are going to need him for this game. They're going to need all the playmakers they can get because on the other side of the ball, the Cowboys have plenty of playmakers, and the Dolphins have not been very stout, especially in the defensive backfield this season. So I just have to go with the Cowboys here because I just don't believe Tyreek is completely healthy. And the Dolphins have other injuries too that they're concerned about. Their top 2 running backs are hurt. Connor Williams, he's out for the year. Teron Armstead, he missed practice. It's a lot of firepower on that offense to try to keep up this Cowboys team. Not to mention the fact that the Dolphins still really haven't had that signature win this year. It could be here, but they haven't proved it yet, and they're not fully healthy. So I'm going to go Cowboys.
Well, what do you think about over/under in this game? Over might hammer the over.
When everyone thinks the game is going to go over, it usually goes under.
Yeah,
That always ends up happening.
I know, Heath. I know.
Yeah, I think what might happen, what I think the outcome of this game will be, it'll be something like Cowboys 30, Dolphins 20 in that range. And I don't know what the over/under total is, if you know.
It's 49.5. Yes, so I think I will get it at 49.
You know what? I think it would go over, but it'll be close.
I hope.
It's not going to be a lock.
Regardless, hope it's a good game.
Yes, one of the games I'm very excited for. As I'm also excited for the game tomorrow on Thursday Night Football because there's huge playoff implications in this game.
Yes.
2 7-7 NFC wild card hopefuls square off on Thursday Night Football. The Saints and the Rams. Matthew Stafford at home. His team is looking good. They've had some injuries and tough schedules and just general experience on the team, but they're in a good spot. The Saints, they've despite them being 7-7, they just kind of feel like a very bleh team. They haven't Derek Carr has not won the fans over whatsoever. But their defense is still pretty good, and they can shut down teams when they need to. But it is a road game for the Saints. So what are you thinking here, Chuck?
This was definitely a tough one. Saints defense is 6th overall in pass defense, but their run defense is 22nd overall. So I want to definitely take the Rams here as the home team. I think the Rams early, they're going to set up the run, set up the pass, and they could do it too with Puka and Cooper Kupp and what's his name? Kyron Williams might have a day. They might run screens up and down the field on them. We've seen the Saints definitely give up some gash plays in the run defense. It's just a matter of Matthew Stafford taking care of the football, I think, and letting it loose down the field and letting this Saints defense have it when he wants to run play action. And I also think special teams play is going to come into effect here because I don't think the Saints have the best special teams, especially I think at punter. So just a little thing here. Special teams is going to win this game, so give me the Rams at home.
I'm going to go with the Rams too. The Saints are a different team at home, and they got the guy that you'd want to win a crucial game with Matthew Stafford, and the coaching staff. The Saints don't have that. They don't have that clutch quarterback. They don't have that great play caller who can out scheme another great coach. And the Saints have some injuries themselves to be dealing with. Their receiving core is very banged up, and on the defensive side, it looks like Marshawn Lattimore isn't going to play. That means that they got to have these other guys try to cover Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. It seems like a game that the Rams should easily win on paper, but yeah, we'll see. It's the whole NFL has been drunk this year, so I don't know what to expect.
I'm drunk with them. I'm hammered.
Hell yeah! Let's hammer home some locks, Chuck. What are your locks this week?
So I didn't like a lot of the bowl games this weekend, and then I'm just hearing a bunch of shit guys transferring here, transferring there. So I got 2 college games real quick. So we got Armed Forces Bowl, Saturday at 3:30 p.m. JMU, who's 11-1, versus Air Force, who is I think 8-4. It's funny Air Force is in this game, but I'm going to bet against the Armed Forces. I'm going to go with JMU, who is absolutely nasty on the run and the run game. And I think Air Force doesn't have a really good run defense. And it's -2.5. So definitely all they got to do is win by a field goal. So I think give me JMU. Las Vegas Bowl, Saturday, 7:30 p.m. It's Utah versus Northwestern. Utah's 8-4, Northwestern 7-5. Nobody thought Northwestern would have been here in the first place, especially after those after the what was it, hazing scandal with Fitzpatrick, and then he got fired, and now they ended up 7-5, and they're in a bowl game, and Utah is losing a shit ton of secondary guys on defense to the transfer portal. So I'm hammering Northwestern plus 6.5 against Utah. So hopefully they can just maybe lose by 6 or maybe win the whole game. And
All right.
NFL.
So before we get to NFL, first of all, love the Northwestern pick. I got Northwestern there, and 2 picks that I like to add in for college football. I like Georgia State to beat Utah State, and Eastern Michigan to cover 17.5 point spread against South Alabama.
Let me get these down.
Lock it in.
Was it? You said South Alabama's like? Is it? What are they?
They're like a 17.5 point favorite.
Yeah.
I got Eastern Michigan covering.
Okay. All right. So they're gonna kill them. All right. I'm in on those. All right.
Okay. NFL, baby.
Okay. Real quick. I got 6 picks here. Terrible last week. I went 1, 3, and 1. I'm 27, 22, and 3 on the year. So here we go. Saturday, 8 p.m. Bills at the Chargers. Bills just beat the piss out of the Cowboys. Let's see them go on the road. I know Chargers got the interim head coach thing going on, so maybe they play harder. But I think this Chargers team is just god awful, and they couldn't stop. They couldn't hit the ocean if they fell out of a boat. If that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
And Sunday, 1 p.m. we got Colts at Falcons. Falcons just lost to the Panthers. I know it was a monsoon, but and I know they're on the road, but I think this Falcons team is just fake as hell. Colts looked really good against the Steelers last week. I think they're gonna miss Michael Pittman. I have to check on that, but taking Colts money line. Another 1 p.m. game, Browns at Texans. Taking Browns minus 2.5. Texans are gonna start Case Keenum, I'm pretty sure. So I'm gonna go against the backup quarterback. I'm off that. I'm off the Case Keenum bandwagon. Sunday, 4 p.m. Bucks versus Jags. Bucks are at home. Bucks -1 versus Jags. I'm pretty sure Trevor Lawrence is in concussion protocol, so we're gonna go against the backup there as well. Sunday, 8 p.m. Now this is the one where I just have a feeling. Pats at Broncos. We're gonna do Pats plus 6.5 at the Broncos. I think the Patriots get back on track, and they somehow Bailey Zappi goes Zappi mode. He goes Western Kentucky mode, and he somehow covers this game, or they win it in the end. Because I think Russell Wilson and Sean Payton, I think they're not a good fix together. I think hot take at the end of the season. I think Russell Wilson's gone.
Oh,
Sean Payton's here to stay. And also, last one, Monday. I got to go with my Chiefs on Christmas Day for a little Christmas present. Chiefs -10 versus the Raiders.
All right, solid picks all around. And I'll tell you the ones I agree with. Chargers versus Bills. Yeah, I think the Bills, they're looking like one of the best teams in the NFL right now. They've overcame all those injuries, and they're really putting things together, blowing out good opponents. The Chargers don't seem like a team that's going to rally right now after firing a head coach. It seems more like the season's just kind of in the dumps. The Bills will be a more focused team. And I like the Browns too to beat the Texans. I think this Texans team will rally around their backup quarterback, but it's Joe Flacco, man. You got to keep riding the wagon while you can.
Yeah.
So here's my other picks. I like the Steelers on Saturday to beat the Bengals. The Bengals are riding a hot streak right now, and all the negativity is surrounding the Steelers. They're on a terrible run right now, but don't forget this team has never finished under 500. And if there's anything Mike Tomlin knows how to do, it's coach his team up for big games. Maybe not the teams that they should beat, but for big games, I think he'll coach him up for this one. I'm going to disagree with you on Indy versus Atlanta. Atlanta is a very streaky team this year. I think they get it done at home. I don't think the Colts are as good as we think they are. They've had a lot of close victories, but Michael Pittman, he's in concussion protocol. He doesn't play as a top target that Minshew is desperately going to miss. And it seems like every time Arthur Smith, doesn't utilize Bijan properly, he goes back and utilizes him properly next week, only to then, do the opposite next week. But regardless, I think Atlanta wins at home. Another upset that I got the Titans beating the Seahawks. Seahawks, emotional victory on Monday. They're not going to get up for this Tennessee team, who's been really good at home this year. They've been dreadful on the road, but they've been really good at home. I got the Titans winning that one. And then looking down the line, the rest of these games, I like the Chicago Bears, and they're my pick of the week to cover the spread. This Chicago Bears team has quietly been among the best teams in the NFL over the past few weeks. Truly, their defense has been absolutely fantastic. Ever since they added Montez Sweat, it's a whole different defense.
Yeah.
He is ferocious at rushing the passer, and they already had some good pieces in place. And Justin Fields, he's making all the right reads. He's playing like he doesn't want to get replaced next year. Will he still get replaced? Most likely. But
Yeah.
The Bears are riding a hot streak right now. The Cardinals, they've shown signs of being competitive, but there's just a lack of talent on that roster. Even Kyler coming back won't be able to overcome it. So I got the Bears covering the spread there.
I'm definitely on the Bears. I like that a lot.
Hell yeah. Oh, and one more pick. Jets Commanders. Smash that over.
Over?
Smash that over, yeah.
Okay.
Washington's terrible defense. They're going to get ran through.
It's low, right?
Yeah.
It's like I think it's 36.
Washington's got bad defense. Jets will go up early, and then Washington will come back in garbage time.
Hey, stick to the script. I'm with it.
Let's go.
I didn't know what to do in that game, so I'm hitting that.
Let's go. We are sticking to the script, as always, on the Chuck and Shoop Show. So if you like this episode, please make sure to subscribe. Show us to your friends. Like the video.
Like that.
Give us money on Venmo. Come to our house and give us gifts. It is Christmas after all. Just do all
Happy
that.
holidays.
Happy holidays to our viewers. Thank you for your continued support over the past years. We're inching up on 100 subscribers, so we are very much looking forward to that day. We'll throw a big party.
Amen.
But until then, I'm Shoop.
I'm Chuck.
And we'll see you next time.
Deuces, people.
Bang.
Love yous.